Good morning to one and all. The topic for today's journal
Hello.
presentation is the normal vascular anatomy of the humeral femoral head during growth. This was the original monograph published by Joseph Trueta in 1957 in the Journal of Bone and Joint Surgery. The study was conducted in Nuffield Orthopedic Center, Oxford, England. Coming to introduction, the vascular pattern of the head and neck of the adult human femur has already been published as a part of the investigation on the circulation in the normal and in some pathological conditions of the hip joint by Trueta and Harrison in 1953. Soon after this work, it appeared convenient to investigate the changes in the vascular arrangement of the upper end of femur in the period between birth and epiphyseal maturation. And this paper was attempted to explain the evolution of vasculature of the head and neck of human femur from the last 4 weeks of fetal life up to the fusion of upper femoral epiphysis at the age of 17. Materials and methods. This investigation refers exclusively to human specimens removed after death and injected with the technique described elsewhere. The materials used for the study is given in Table 1. Altogether, 46 specimens, upper end of femur, were available after those which, for one reason or another, were considered unsuitable for the study and had been discarded. So, this is the table of the materials used. As we can see, a total of 46 femoral heads were used. Males comprising of 21 and females comprising of 25. And on the left hand side, we can see the age-wise distribution of the number of specimens used for each age group. All the injected specimens from the cadaver of children of white West European stock were used. Most came from hospitals in Oxford and London, but 9 were from the Barcelona and Oporto. Results. Vascular arrangement at the time of birth. Before the vasculature of the upper end of femur at birth is described, it is convenient to remember that the process of ossification, initiated in the center of the shaft in the middle of fetal life, has now reached the area which will later become the femoral neck and greater trochanter. Figure 1, we can see the radiograph of femur of a newly born infant. The vascular pattern at this stage is one of the most constant that he had found. From the top of the ossifying border, a series of straight vessels varying in number from 10 to 15 ascend almost vertically through the cartilaginous head. This is as seen in figure 2 and 3. As we can see in the figure 2 and figure 3, uh, it's a specimen of an 18-day-old male. In the figure 2 shows the anterior half and the figure 3 shows the posterior half. You can see the straight vertical arrangement of the vessel. From the middle side of the metaphysis, crossing the layers of cartilage, which later will constitute the epiphyseal growth plate. They proceed toward the top of the head, ending at a definite distance from the surface. Another large group of vessels, also part of the femoral head, is the region of the trochanteric notch and advances horizontally, descending slightly towards the center of the head. In figure 4, again, we can see the same. Figure 5 shows a histological picture of a female of 2 months old. This thin section shows the ascending vessels penetrating the layers of cartilaginous cells, which later will constitute the epiphyseal plate. This is the magnification of the area illustrated in figure 4. This is the figure 4. In figure 6, this is a specimen of a female 3-month-old, where we can see the metaphyseal vessels ascending almost vertically towards the higher part of the femoral head, as described before. And again, the specimen of a female 3-month-old, showing lateral epiphyseal vessels penetrating almost horizontally across the femoral head. These two systems of capital vessels will, once the epiphysis finally organized, constitute the inferior metaphyseal and the lateral epiphyseal vessels respectively. The most intruding feature of all these vessels is their ending. Every artery nearing its termination breaks into a number of precapillaries and capillaries with shapes like the spray of a fountain, soon to join up again into a single large vein which runs back in close contact with its artery. This is figure 8 showing the specimen from a 3-month-old female. You can see the artery penetrating the cartilaginous head accompanied by its vein with the terminal net-like expansions. On the left-hand side, we can see the terminal net-like expansion. Here we can see the vein and the artery. In this figure 9, we can see the specimen from a 3-month-old female. The venous network here is longer and overshadows the artery. Figure 10 and 11, again specimen of a 3-month-old female, showing two further examples of the terminal vascular arrangement. Whatever the function of these terminal arrangements may be, they seem related to the preparation of encounteral ossification, encounteral head for ossification. At sufficient magnification, the young cartilaginous tissue surrounding them takes on a granular appearance. Thus, we can see in figure 12 the specimen from a 3-month-old female, the sinusoid type of vascular ending with an artery opening into a venous network. Note, we can see that the granular nature of the cartilaginous ground substance surrounding the vessels and at the uppermost part of the picture. The behavior of these vessels entering the ligamentum teres is of interest. In late fetal and early neonatal life, it is common to find a large artery with some smaller vessels entering the femoral head and distributing themselves through an area approximately as large as the one they found later. Each of the terminal capillaries is of same length, a curious arrangement which gives to this vascular area the shape of a daisy. No connection whatsoever has been found at this early stage of prenatal and postnatal development between the three vascular systems of the femoral head, each artery ending in a venous lake which frequently appears like a laurel leaf. This figures 13 and 14 shows the described arrangement. Figure 13 of a fetus microradiograph showing penetration of large arteries from ligamentum teres into the cartilaginous head. This the cursor, we can see that the penetration of large arteries from the ligamentum teres into the cartilaginous head. And on figure 14 is an example of penetrating capillaries and another fetal femoral head from the artery of ligamentum teres. Vascular pattern from 4 months to 3 years. The most appreciable change in the vascular arrangement occurring before the 4th month is the disappearance of the penetrating vessels from the ligamentum teres. This coincides approximately with the time when the secondary ossification center is first seen in the middle of the. Usually the ossicle is single, but on occasions it begins with several nuclei, the largest of which is in the middle. On section, the main points of vascular penetration, both metaphyseal and lateral epiphyseal, are well seen in figure 15 and 17. Now in this figure 15, we can see the specimen from a male 4-month-old showing the fragmented ossicle of the secondary ossification as shown in the cursor. And figure 16 and 17 as described before, it's a specimen from a 4-month-old male. Figure 16 showing center of the secondary ossification center and several canals of vascularization penetrating both from metaphysis and lateral side of the epiphysis. And figure 17 is a microradiograph after decalcification of the whole head, showing actual vessels whose sectional canal is shown in the figure 16. No round ligament vessels are seen at this stage. From 4 to 8 months, the ossifying center has grown to occupy the middle third of the cartilaginous head. After decalcification, the injected specimen shows a rich vascularity of the ossicle and sometimes vessels of the ligamentum teres which do not penetrate the body nucleus. In figure 18, we can see the photograph of a cartilaginous head with the secondary center of ossification occupying approximately the middle third of the femoral head, as seen here. At this period of development, the metaphysis facing the head is almost as large as facing the cartilaginous trochanter. In figure 19 and 20, decalcified anterior half from the posterior half of a specimen from an 8-month-old male shows the size and profusion of the metaphyseal vessels penetrating the femoral head and some vascularization of the round ligament which is not connected with the ossifying center. As we can see on the left hand side, the profusion of the metaphyseal vessels penetrating the femoral head can be seen. The organization of a secondary nucleus of ossification steadily progresses, and at 18 months, the epiphysis is well constituted, even if the space of the epiphyseal cartilage is still large. With the specimen decalcified, a new feature already initiated some months earlier is now clearly outlined. Namely, the main source of blood supply to the epiphysis at this stage comes from the vessels we have called in the adult lateral epiphyseal arteries. So again, figure 21, this is a radiograph showing the large size of the ossified capital epiphysis. No nucleus of ossification yet appears in the cartilaginous trochanter. Figure 22 and 23 is a specimen from an 18-month-old female, microradiograph of the anterior half and the posterior half, showing at this stage the predominance of lateral epiphyseal vessels over the metaphyseal. You can see the lateral epiphyseal vessels here, is predominance over the metaphyseal. And you can see the lack of vessels from the ligamentum teres here on both the specimen. Again, the same thing, the lateral epiphyseal vessels are seen. In this figure 24, we can see the specimen from an 18-month-old female, photograph showing the same specimen as shown in figure 22 and 23. The predominance of lateral epiphyseal vessels are again seen here. The fetal ascending metaphyseal arteries are rapidly decreasing in number and caliber and are now entering the epiphysis after crossing the outer perimeter of the growth plate. They no longer pierce the epiphyseal cartilage as was the case earlier. The tendency towards an exclusive lateral epiphyseal circulation continues, even if substantial and individual variations are frequent. Again, this figure shows a 21-month female specimen, a photographic section showing progressive lengthening of the femoral neck and a reduction of the area occupied by the growth cartilage of the femoral head. Figures 26 and 27 shows photograph of Splattenholz preparation. Figure 26 is the anterior half and figure 27 is the posterior half. The femoral head shows a much more profuse metaphyseal vascularization than that shown in figures 22 to 24. Round ligament vessels are also visible. But now and for the following 3 or sometimes 4 years, the arteries of the ligamentum teres are either totally absent or they reappear but do not penetrate even the cartilage of the foveal region. We can see below the figure 28, a specimen of a 2 years and 6-month-old male. The radiograph shows the absence of round ligament arteries and further increase of the ossifying femoral neck. Figures 29 and 30 show specimen again of a male, 2 years and 6-month-old, microradiograph of the decalcified anterior half and posterior half, showing the lateral epiphyseal vessels here and here, anastomosing with the 3 remaining metaphyseal vessels which cross over the epiphyseal plate. Here we can see on the right hand side picture the metaphyseal vessels crossing over the epiphyseal plate and anastomosing with the lateral epiphyseal. Figure 31 showing a female 2 years old, anterior, posterior and lateral radiographs demonstrating the lack of penetration of round ligament arteries at this stage. Note the increase in length of the metaphysis of the femoral neck facing the trochanter. Here on the left hand side picture, we can see the increase in length of the metaphysis of the femoral neck facing the trochanter, which has not yet begun to ossify. Figures 32 and 33 show female 2 years and 10 months old, microradiographs of decalcified anterior half and posterior half. 2 or 3 metaphyseal arteries penetrate the capital ossicle while arteries from the ligamentum teres remain unconnected. So on the right hand side picture, we can see 2 metaphyseal arteries penetrating the capital ossicle while the arteries from the ligamentum teres are unconnected here. At 3 years of age, the metaphyseal vessels have usually diminished still further, although they may not have completely disappeared. At 4 years, the arteries from ligamentum teres are usually patent, but they do not contribute to the supply of epiphysis, although insufficient observation may lead to error. Figure 34 shows a radiograph showing further lengthening of the femoral neck and narrowing of the area occupied by the epiphyseal plate. And figure 35 and 36 shows micrograph of anterior half and posterior half. The number and caliber of the metaphyseal vessels have further diminished. As we can see, the number of metaphyseal vessels have further diminished here, and no connection is yet established between the ligamentum teres and those in the ossifying center. Again, a radiograph showing the penetration of an artery from the ligamentum teres in the femoral head here. But after decalcification, this was shown to be an error. A shadow produced by the center of ossification in the trochanteric region is also seen. Intermediate vascular pattern. This stage of vascular development, the intermediate period of childhood is reached with marked individual and racial variations. This is characterized by complete organization of the bony epiphysis with only one source of blood, that coming from the lateral epiphyseal vessels, which are branches of the distal part of the medial circumflex artery. Figures 38 and 39 show a good example of vascular arrangement at 4 years of age. So this is figure 38 and 39, micrograph of a decalcified anterior half and posterior half, showing large vessels coming from the ligamentum teres. Here on the right hand side, figure 39, it's clear. Large vessels coming from ligamentum teres, but still not connected with the epiphyseal vessels. Only one or two small vessels are seen crossing over the surface of the epiphyseal plate. The points of entry of the lateral epiphyseal arteries are close together in the outer segment of the head and slightly posterior. A minute metaphyseal artery still reaches the epiphysis in its medial side, and a number of large arteries in the ligamentum teres end without any connection with the epiphysis. Before 6 years of age, the same arrangement is found, but occasionally an exceptionally well supplied epiphysis is seen, like that shown in figures 40 to 42, where an artery of ligamentum teres has already penetrated the epiphysis, anastomosing with the rest of the vascularity, while some of the infantile metaphyseal vessels still remain. This is figure 40, showing the artery from ligamentum teres seen penetrating deeply into the epiphysis. Figure 41 and 42, showing micrograph of anterior half and posterior half after decalcification. The artery from the ligamentum teres is seen anastomosing with the lateral epiphyseal vessels and with small arteries arising from the metaphysis. Here we can see the artery from the ligamentum teres seen anastomosing with the lateral epiphyseal vessels. Apparently, this is an arrangement that protects the nourishment of the epiphysis during the transient intermediate period, which extends from 4 to 7 years. More commonly, the distribution of metaphyseal arteries at about 6 years of age is like that of adolescent, when they have finally disappeared. But the infantile absence of blood flow from the ligamentum teres still persists. Figure 43 to 45 shows good examples of this intermediate vascular pattern. This is figure 43 of a male 6 years and 2 months old, showing the relatively large size of the ossifying trochanter and the length of the neck at this age. This is the length of the neck at this age, and this is the large size of the ossifying trochanter. Figures 44 and 45 for male 6 year and 2 month old, microradiographs of decalcified anterior half and posterior half, showing the metaphyseal vessels practically ceasing to penetrate the epiphysis. The round ligament still keeps this infantile lack of vascular development. Coming to the pre-adolescent period. From the age of 7 upwards, the penetration of vessels from the ligamentum teres appears to be increasingly frequent, and at 9 of 10, the pre-adolescent type of epiphyseal blood supply seems definitely established. Even if sometimes the participation of the medial epiphyseal arteries does not seem so great as in adult life. The growth plate is an isolating barrier raised between the femoral epiphysis and the rest of the bone, as is well seen in figures 47 and 48, and in 49 and 50, where a female head of 13 years shows a clear-cut division of the two vascular systems, which will continue until epiphyseal fusion is complete. This is figure 46, showing specimen from a 9 year and 10-month-old male, microradiograph of a decalcified specimen, showing complete independence of the epiphyseal vessels from those of the metaphysis of the femoral head. This is the epiphysis, this is the metaphysis. There is complete independence of the epiphyseal vessels from those of the metaphysis. Again, figure 47 and 48, photographs of the splatal holes preparation of anterior half and posterior half, showing that not a single vessel crosses over the epiphysis to the metaphysis. Here we can see there is no crossing over of any vessel from the epiphysis to the metaphysis. And figure 48, a rich vascular anastomosis of the adult type already exists between the arteries of ligament and terminal vessels from the lateral epiphyseal arteries. This is again a specimen from a 13-year-old female, photograph showing whole of the femoral head, and a microradiograph showing the complete independence of the epiphysis from the metaphyseal blood supply as vessels of the ligamentum teres penetrate the femoral head. the adolescent period. It is to be noted that even at puberty, the infantile unity of the epiphyseal plate of the upper end of femur still persists, as shown in 51 to 54, where a single epiphyseal cartilage covers the whole of the neck under the epiphysis of the head and greater trochanter. By then, the growth plate corresponding to the head may begin to show the first signs of its imminent disappearance. Figure 51 and 52 radiograph showing complete maturity of the trochanter epiphysis. And photograph of a section of the upper femoral epiphysis showing the persistence of a single growth cartilage under the femoral capillary epiphysis and trochanteric epiphysis. You can see this is the single growth cartilage under the femoral capillary epiphysis and the trochanteric epiphysis. Figure 53 and 54 showing female 14-year 3-month-old photograph showing excellent injection of the end vessels under the metaphyseal side of the plate and lateral epiphyseal vessels at the moment of branching of the medial circumflex artery. This again shows the photograph of a section of femoral head showing a reduction in height of the epiphyseal plate, which precedes final closure of the growth cartilage. You can see here on the left-hand side picture, the size of the epiphyseal plate has reduced, height of the epiphyseal plate has reduced. And figure 56, microradiograph after decalcification, showing an excellent vascular supply from ligamentous series. A rich vascularity is frequent at the upper part of the metaphysis at this age, whereas the side of the epiphysis covering the growth plate does not show any corresponding vascular profusion. It may be that this is the vascular pattern preceding the epiphyseal fusion when cartilage cell proliferation begins to decrease and ossification progresses from the metaphyseal side towards the epiphysis until the whole area of the growth cartilage becomes ossified. The importance of the vessel from the ligamentum teres is obvious at this stage. Closure of the space occupied by the growth cartilage after this age is well on the way, and at 17 it was found complete in 3 different heads examined. Figures 57 and 58 show the upper femoral epiphysis of a girl of 17 years with many anastomosis joining the epiphyseal with the metaphyseal vessels, an arrangement that will be present throughout life. Figure 57 and 58 showing radiograph, complete fusion of both the upper femoral epiphysis. And figure 58 shows photograph of the same specimen in which the adult type of circulation has finally achieved. The vessels adjoining the epiphyseal plate. For the study of the vessels, they have used sections of particularly well-injected specimens, a small selection of which illustrates main findings. The vascular arrangement providing the transudate required for the nourishment of the serial or reproductive cells of the growth plate, that is the cells nearer to the epiphysis, is situated at a distance which is progressively reduced as time goes on until the bone and thus the vessels become close to the plate at about 4 years of age. In spite of this migration of the vessels towards the epiphyseal side of the cartilage, there is no appreciable change in the shape from the time the bony epiphysis is organized until late adolescence. The vessels are large, tortuous, and not very close together. They expand towards the plate, and at an equidistant point, they either run parallel to the plate for a short way or turn back towards the epiphysis. This figure 59 shows the tortuous vessels of the epiphyseal side of the growth plate. It has not been possible for them to differentiate arteries from veins in this area because all the vessels have similar characteristics. No small branches are seen to spring from the main vascular trunks. On the metaphyseal side of the plate, the vascular pattern is totally different. The last ramification of the nutrient artery and the perforating vessels of the femoral neck, together with those coming from the arteries elsewhere named upper and lower metaphyseal, and in a brush-like pattern as seen in figure 60, intimately connected to the distal or hypertrophic layer cells of the growth plate, each vessel turning back in a sharp loop. So this is the brush-like pattern of the vessels at the metaphyseal side of the growth plate. And figure 61 shows sharp vascular loops of the hypertrophic cells of the growth cartilage. This arrangement is better seen in the tibial epiphyseal plate of the rabbit, where each brush seems connected to a single column of the hypertrophic cells. This intimacy suggests the decisive role that these vessels play in the process of encounteral ossification. While the growth of the epiphysis is made by apposition of new layers of bone, The mechanism by which this occurs is not yet well understood, particularly insofar as the vessels are concerned. Several observations have been made seem to indicate that as with the early penetration of the encountered head by the vessels before ossification begins, new vascular sprouts also precede the laying down of bone, thus once more linking bone formation with vascular activity. So figure 62 shows the vascular sprout preceding the laying down of the new epiphyseal bone. Discussion. There are mainly 5 phases. At birth, infantile, intermediate, pre-adolescent, and adolescent. Phase 1, that is at birth, vessels coming from the lateral side of the head proceed horizontally towards its medial side, while other vessels emerge almost vertically from the top of the ossified shaft. Vessels are seen coming from the round ligament, but they are not constant. In phase 2, that is the infantile phase, is from 4 months to 4 years. The predominant blood flow arises from the metaphyseal vessels, crossing the area later to be occupied by the growth plate. The lateral epiphyseal vessels are also important, but there are no penetrating vessels coming from the ligamentum teres, even if in the early days some large vessels are seen to enter the head from the source. They soon disappear. Phase 3, the intermediate phase, this is from 4 to 7 years. The epiphyseal plate has been established, a firm barrier between the epiphysis and metaphysis. The metaphyseal blood flow decreases to become negligible or nearly so, while the round ligament has not yet provided vessels penetrating the epiphysis. During these 2 or 3 years, the only source of blood to the epiphysis comes from the lateral epiphyseal vessels, all of them tightly grouped on the lateral aspect of the head. Phase 4, the pre-adolescent phase. This is from 9 or 10 years. Here, while the growth plate acts as a close barrier to the vessels, the arteries from the ligamentum teres finally reach the depths of the epiphysis and become anastomosed to other vessels, all of which are branches of lateral epiphyseal arteries. Thus, at this stage, the epiphysis receives blood from 2 main sources situated at the greatest possible distance from each other. And phase 5 is the adolescent phase. Here, the barrier of the epiphyseal plate begins to break down and vascular anastomosis crosses over, bringing into being the final or adult stage of circulation, where the epiphyseal and round ligament vessels are joined again to those of the metaphysis, giving to the femoral head the vascular interwoven pattern. And some of the disorders that Joseph Proeta tried to explain with the above findings include from 1 to 3 years, the delay in appearance and retarded development of the secondary center of ossification of the femoral head in congenital dislocation of hip and its increase in size after proper reduction. The lateral epiphyseal vessels are occluded by the capsula pulled, but the metaphyseal are still open to circulation. From 4 to 7 years of age, the leg calvi-Perthes disease, normal absence of blood supply from the ligamentum teres and poor or none from the metaphyseal vessels, the only real source. The lateral epiphyseal vessels may become obstructed by trauma or inflammation. And from 11 to 15 years of age, slip capital femoral epiphysis. This is a period of great vascular activity in the metaphyseal side of the growth plate, preceding the fusion of epiphysis. Summary. The results of the study of the characteristics of the vessels found in 46 human femoral heads during the growth period are described. Of the 3 different sources of blood entering the human adult femoral head, it was found that from the birth to about 3 to 4 years, the vessels of the ligamentum teres do not contribute to the nourishment of the head. After the 4th year, the metaphyseal vessels decrease in importance until they finally disappear, leaving the head with only one source of blood through the lateral epiphyseal vessels. The ligamentum teres is yet not contributing to the circulation of the head. After about 8 or 9 years, it was found that vessels of the ligamentum teres contribute to the blood supply of the head while the metaphyseal blood flow is still arrested. Finally, at puberty, after a period of activity of the metaphyseal vessels, the epiphyseal fusion takes place, bringing together the 3 sources of blood characteristic of the adult.
Thank you, Ashwin. Very nice presentation. Actually, when this was published in late 50s. It was a remarkable paper about the pathology and the pathogenesis of especially electile Perkins disease. So there was controversy why this was prevalent in the races and in the age group. Even though it's called 2 to 12 years, it's mainly in the 5 to 10 or 5 to 8 that age group. And this was very common, especially in the South India. And one hypothesis, there are so many hypotheses regarding the etiopathogenesis of electile Perkins disease, but the most promising and the most accepted hypothesis was by Truetta et al. And that states the importance of the different patterns of circulation in the femoral head, and especially in the age group of 5 to 10, like you have described the age group of 4 to 7 years, where the sole supply of the head of the femur is by the vessels. And there are 4 groups actually, of which the most important is the lateral group. And this group is very vulnerable to compression, especially the joint tamponade, because of traumatic synovitis of the hip joint, as well as due to any other conditions producing synovitis of the hip. That's why this group is more vulnerable for or prone for Perkins disease. And the other conditions like the CDH as well as the slip capital femoral epiphysis, if you go to the detailed etiopathogenesis, we can explain because of the paper presented by Truetta and Harrison in 1957, and see how much effort they have taken to dissect all the dead bodies of the children, neonates, as well as children. And now it is open for discussion.
Ashwin, did you show the photograph of Truetta?
No.
Okay.
No, sir.
I don't know whether you can see this. This book will be given to you later.
Only if you pass the examination the first chance.
Well, Joseph Truetta was actually a Spaniard who escaped the Spanish Civil War between 1936 to 39. He came to England and then he worked with Harrison. We have a Malayali connection to him. Anybody can mention that? Does anybody remember that?
സാർ പറഞ്ഞു തന്നിട്ടുണ്ട് ഒരു
Okay, Truetta worked under MHM Harrison actually, and then did this because Truetta didn't get a job. He escaped to Spain, so he required actually in 1939 or so. The Second World War was just beginning, but he was given as usual a dirty job in a laboratory. That's how he started working under Harrison later. He actually started he reorganized the Newfield Orthopedic Center at Oxford. Anyway, that doesn't matter. I am not going into that. But Professor Achyuta Menon, who hailed from Perindalmalla and retired as a professor of, he left Trivandrum Medical College long back. He attended our Silver Jubilee conference at Trichur in 2006 or so. He passed away probably 4 or 5 years ago. So they did a lot of work on Perthes, and the stimulus was actually by Truetta and Harrison. So there are many articles on Legg-Calvé Perthes disease, MHM Harrison and APA Menon, which you can see in the earlier annals of the Journal of Bone and Joint Surgery. So we have a connection. Truetta's name should be remembered on 2 situations. Number one, his contribution to the understanding of the blood supply of the growing femoral head, which of course you have put it up very clearly in the last but one slide, where the importance of congenital dislocation, the importance in relation to Calvé-Perthes disease, the importance in relation to the epiphyseal slip, this thing, and slip capital femoral epiphysis. Truetta was also a person who recognized that in osteoarthritis, the vascularity increases in osteoarthritis of the femoral head. So his another contribution to orthopedics was to understand the popularizing the concept of treating compound fractures in closed treatment, in the sense a closed plaster. He did not believe in dressing the wounds. If the wound is clean and debrided properly, you can keep a forced dressing and then close it in that, and because it heals inside the plaster. According to him, wounds heal faster in plaster. So that was his message: wounds heal faster in plaster. So this is because this he learned not only in Spanish Civil War, in the Second World War, and he gave actually credit to Joseph Gamgee, which we all use the so-called Gamgee pad, without knowing who actually who actually described that particular dressing. Uh, that should be just applied, which I have already told you how much pressure has to be applied to the dressing. Sudhir, you remember that or not?
Yeah, that I remember.
What?
That much a gentleman apply force to his girlfriend.
Okay, fine. That is at least good. That much pressure that a gentleman applies to a lady's hand. That's exactly what Gamgee answered his training. That you remembered anyway. That's very good. So these are his major contributions, basically, because vascular head, even today, nobody can escape his contribution to understanding the normal vascular anatomy of the human femoral head. Anybody who wants to study any later topics on this should go back to his classic papers, and that has given wonderfully well. The other one is the Minotaur technique, which of course people believe that it's good in wartime situations. This has been happening, and it is being popular even today. People who have worked in African countries, especially when there is a civil unrest, you get a lot of people with multiple injuries in Africa. I have some friends who work in Zimbabwe and other places who have mentioned to me personally that many of the civilians who sustain injuries to legs in landmine blasts and etc., they are treated in plaster and they are left neglected basically because there is nobody to look after them. But subsequently, they all heal. So we have to understand that dressing the wound is not always necessary. If the wound bed is clean, then it will granulate, and granulation tissue is the best defense against subsequent infection. So there is a place. I am not saying that you should not look at the wound, but there is a place for treating this thing. So if a short note is asked on Joseph Truetta, one should be able to say that his contribution to vascular anatomy, understanding of the vascular anatomy of the human femoral head, and also close to treatment of compound fractures. These are some of the things. And we have a distant connection because of Professor Achyuta Menon, who had been working for that, working under him. I think Truetta died probably, let me check it up, in 1970 or so. Yeah, 1977. So he was still a figure when we were also being trained. So we should be able to understand the past, know the past so that's to understand the present. That's my message. That's all.
If anybody want to add some comment, please.
I would like to add something very simple. We should be able to draw in an examination, you should be able to draw how the head of femur is applied. So I have got an easy method by which we can remember how to draw. I may be able to share that. May I share that?
Sure.
Please.
It's not a big thing. Most of you may be knowing that. So which artery is the main route from which the medial and lateral circumflex femoral artery is coming from?
Profunda femoris.
Ashwin. So this, suppose this is profunda femoral artery. So you have got a lateral circumflex femoral artery and a medial circumflex femoral artery going like this. What are the branches of lateral circumflex femoral artery?
I am very familiar with that fellow, lateral circumflex femur.
Ascending cervical branch.
You have got an ascending cervical branch, you have got a transverse cervical branch, and a descending cervical branch. Okay, so the ascending cervical branch of the lateral circumflex femoral artery and the medial circumflex femoral artery join together to form. What do they form?
Extracapsular.
Extracapsular arterial ring is formed. Then they will be giving rise to ascending cervical branches, and they join together to form the what will you call this ring? Intracapsular arterial ring of Chung. You have got a posterior superior branch arising from the medial circumflex femoral artery, posterior inferior branch arising from the medial circumflex femoral artery, and an anterior branch arising from the lateral circumflex femoral artery. From the medial circumflex femoral artery, you have got a very prominent branch. This prominent branch is called the lateral epiphyseal branch of Troita. Now you have got the ligamentum teres here. Which artery is coming from the ligamentum teres?
Arteries ligamentum teres. Arteries ligamentum teres comes from obturator.
It is a branch of obturator artery. So this will be giving rise to Troita medial epiphyseal artery. Okay, so these branches are called, what will you call these branches? They are called the ascending cervical branch. This area is called the cervical region. So they are called the ascending cervical branches. The other branches in the epiphysis are called the, what will you call? Epiphyseal vessels. So this is the blood supply of the femoral head, which can be easily drawn. One important thing I have to add is regarding the development of osteomyelitis. There is an age difference in the development of osteomyelitis turning into septic arthritis. In less than 2 years, there is more chance of septic arthritis. More than 12 years, there is more chance of septic arthritis. Why? Because between 2 and 12 years, the epiphysis will be acting as a barrier. The physis will be acting as a barrier for the metaphyseal vessel to reach the epiphysis. Only a few vessels will be able to pass. So there is less chance of osteomyelitis turning into septic arthritis in that age group. That's all.
Kishore, could you enlighten me that is it the medial circumflex femoral artery which is a major contributor in comparison to the lateral circumflex femoral artery?
It is the medial circumflex femoral artery.
Okay, because that's how I also remember.
Femoral artery is usually cut by the surgeon.
No, I get so many. I have told you the story of Professor Joseph who used to cut it with impunity, and it was my stupid job to identify the vessel and ligate it as a tutor in orthopedics. So it was the ascending branch of the lateral circumflex femoral artery, which interferes with the Hutter approach to the anterior aspect of the femoral head.
Because nature knows that the surgeon is going to cut the vessel.
Yeah, two people
it has placed the vessel. It has placed the vessel posteriorly and medially.
Yeah, so, nature knew it better. That there will be people to cut it, and there will be people to tie it also. Right. No, because I have not seen any complications following ligation of the vessel of this thing. That's why I am more or less convinced that it is not the lateral circumflex which is more important in comparison to the medial circumflex femoral artery, because probably that is at a safer level, posteriorly placed. So it is covered by the gluteal muscles also. So naturally, it is safer. It is true. We have to remember all those clinical conditions which are very important. But ultimately, this knowledge should translate in understanding the clinical situation. That's it. Anybody else want to contribute?
The vessel that is usually injured when in DDH, medial approach. That is usually a question sometimes asked. In a young child, DDH may be approached through the medial approach. So the vessel that is commonly injured is the medial circumflex femoral artery. You should try not to injure the medial circumflex femoral artery. That is usually a question.